In Battersea, a single grapefruit tree was given protected status. Loved, preserved, safeguarded for the future. And yet, the trees that hold Britain's memory, the sycamores, the oaks, the living monuments, are falling one by one. And it makes you wonder, what are we actually choosing to preserve? If we care this much about one tree in a London estate, why do we keep letting the ones that shape Britain get chopped down for airports, housing estates, and photo ops? Why do we have systems in place to protect a citrus tree in a London estate garden, but not the Sycamore Gap tree, not the oak in Whitewebbs Park, and not the ancient trees being cleared for airports, roads, or convenience? It's not that the grapefruit tree doesn't deserve it. It's because they all do. Because it isn't just about trees. It's about what we choose to preserve. Mind the gap. You've heard it 1,001 times at train stations, painted at your feet. I'm sorry, a pigeon's just flown in. Okay, where were we? So mind the gap. You've heard it 1,000 times at train stations, painted at your feet, but there's a bigger gap now. And it isn't between the train and the platform, it's between us and the land, between our heritage and our habits, between what we say we love about Britain and what we quietly let fall. I wanted to talk about the Sycamore Gap tree because I believe it's emblematic of an emerging problem that we have in this country, the growing gap between what we want Britain to be and the image of what we believe we are. Because the Sycamore Gap tree wasn't just a photo op, it was a monument, alive, rooted in history, perfectly framed by the land. And two people decided to cut it down on purpose and film it for content. We say we love Britain. We say we care about our nature, but only 14% of our native woodland is left. Ancient woodland, just 2.5. And yet we build, we pave, we concrete over it, and then we slap eco-friendly on the packaging, and we call that progress. But real sustainability isn't about building new things in green paint. It's not about bulldozing what was already sacred. We just accessorize nature, we don't protect it. Britain loves a good wildflower strip next to a motorway, provided the motorway comes first. We want beauty without sacrifice, legacy without care, but the forests that actually changed Britain, that hold the memory and the soul of it, we just flatten them for roads, runways, and real estates. Or because Britain has developed a bit of a PR problem. Since COVID, we've become obsessed with curating this image of a modern, ethical, globally minded Britain, a brand Britain. But a nation isn't a brand, it's a body. And this one's being hollowed out. Because whilst we're exporting progress, we're not exporting land, love, or legacy. We're airbrushing the country to look good in photos, while forgetting to protect the very thing that made it beautiful in the first place. So maybe it's time we asked, what's the point in having a good global image if the actual Britain is falling apart at the filter? And here's something we don't talk enough about. The Sycamore Gap wasn't taken down by developers, or politicians, or outsiders. It was two British men with a saw. We keep asking why newcomers don't respect British culture, but maybe the better question is, do we? We keep asking why people don't assimilate into British values. But what are those values now? British values aren't static, they evolve, but love for the land, care for what we've inherited has always been one of them. And if we don't protect our own land, our own symbols, then why the hell should anyone else care? We romanticize this idea of the quiet majority. And I'm sure we are all somewhere. I mean, I count myself in that number. Always loving Britain, always standing guard. Make assumptions that local monuments and landmarks be respected. But if that was true, then the Sycamore Gap would be standing. And sometimes, even when they are protected, it still doesn't save them. In Newport, a woman ignored a preservation order, chopped down a century-old lime, and dumped the remains nearby because she just didn't care. And if laws mean nothing and reverence means nothing, what chance does legacy have? We love the idea of Britain, the nostalgia, the iconography, but too many people in this country don't actually love the land. Not enough to protect it. Not enough to say no. Not enough to stop and think, hang on, how thick you have to be to chop down a national landmark. But that's the real gap between what we imagine ourselves to be and what we've allowed ourselves to become. Because last month, the men who felled the Sycamore Gap tree were sentenced to 4 years. And to some, that felt excessive. To others, it wasn't nearly enough. But here's the question I have: was it justice or theatre? Because also in July, Southampton Airport announced plans to fell dozens of trees to allow planes to carry more passengers. These trees sit on council land. They're not protected by law, but we're told that they're treated with extra care. Whatever that means. Because when it comes to expansion, extra care seems to mean absolutely nothing. Would we be more outraged if someone cut them down for content than for commercial convenience? The outcome for the land is the same. Destruction is destruction. And let's be honest, local residents do have something to say. More flights means more noise, more pollution, and less quality of life. Where are the environmental protections when you actually need them? And yet those trees will be gone, just like so many others. I mean, thank goodness someone in Battersea had the foresight to protect the grapefruit tree from future cavalier action. Hopefully the tree will always stand in honour of the woman who planted it. But as the roads widened, as forests are being trimmed and woodlands cleared, motorways and A roads just carving up more of our historic countryside, not for trains or trams or even village footpaths, but to accommodate traffic from housing estates built in the middle of nowhere. Places with no rail links, no real infrastructure, just more cars, more roads, more stress. We're being told to travel less, to use public transport, but then we're building lives that only function if you drive. It's contradictory and short-sighted, and it's the wrong kind of progress. Yes, there are big questions about how we manage growth and migration, but if the solution is always to bulldoze what we already love, maybe we're asking the wrong questions. Here's a question I'd like to ask. Why do we highlight the vandalism of two men who destroy a symbol, but stay silent when institutions destroy the substance of Britain itself? If we're going to punish people for cutting down the trees that represent this country, shouldn't we also care about the people cutting down the trees that actually shape it? Because if two men with a saw get 4 years for felling a sycamore, what happens to a company that bulldozes an ancient oak? One that experts say supports hundreds more species, more life, more legacy than the sycamore. Do they get a prison sentence too? Or just planning permission? We've treated the symbol of Britain far better than we treat the reality of it. And those two things should go hand in hand. And I think that's the final gap. And I think it might be the most dangerous one of all. There's a gap in that hill now. There's a bigger one in our culture. A gap between who we think we are and how we behave. Behind the Britain we imagine and the one we're quietly leaving behind. The future always arrives. Does that have to come at the expense of everything we've already loved? And unless we start minding that gap truly, actively, urgently, we'll lose more than a tree. We'll lose memory and meaning and the quiet things that made Britain worth loving in the first place. So please mind the gap, mind the land, and mind the legacy. Because legacy isn't just what we leave behind, it's what we love while it's still here. And if we can't protect the soul of Britain now, then what exactly are we preserving it for? So let me know what you think about this topic below. And as always, please have a think about liking and subscribing. Thanks.